Hi, everybody.
Hi, Max.
Earth to Crypto Art. I'm Max. That's Colborn. Daim is below us, and this is your MOCA Weekly Town Hall. It's 12:03 p.m., so we're only a few minutes late. And let's just get right into it. Geez, this backlight behind me is making me look almost ridiculously angelic. Where should we start? Should we start with art host? Should we start with AI fiction? Or should we start with Vanity Fair?
Yeah, I don't know. OpenSea, Vanity Fair.
Should we start there?
Maybe we could wish our dear friend Die with the most likes a happy early birthday.
That sounds like a great idea. Let's
Happy
start there.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Die. If you're listening, pop on. Love to wish you a happy early birthday in person. And if anyone listening has a question or a comment or wants to just interface in any way, shape, or form, even just say hi, we invite you to do so in the chat. We will be here for the next hour. Fantastic. Let's start with... I'll choose. Okay. Well, I've been writing about the Vanity Fair thing for a couple days. So let's start with the Vanity Fair thing. That would be, of course, Vanity Fair's article about the crypto's true believers that came out Wednesday. Absolutely fantastic piece of reporting. Sarah Malote, the Vanity Fair writer, did, I think, a fantastic job at veiled criticism and comedy without really ever seeming to take aim herself, just completely let her interviewees tell the story for her, which I thought was fantastic. Colborn, you've been here quite a while in this whole crypto thing. My gut says I found myself not having too much familiarity with a lot of these people. I had heard of the 7 people interviewed. David Finzer, right? Devin Finzer, thank you. I had heard of Melton Demures, Bitcoin Maxi from her Twitter presence. I had heard of Kathy Wood, the hedge fund manager. But otherwise, I wasn't familiar with these folks. What is your relationship like with people like, was it Danny Ryan, the founder of Etherealize, and Michael Novogratz?
I guess Danny was probably the only one unknown to me. You know, back in 2017, I had a great moment with Olaf where I was volunteering at, I forget the name, it was Token something in New York City. And security was like keeping him out of the building. He was supposed to present. And I'm like, hey, that guy, like, you guys need to let him in. And then he was super grateful for that, which was funny. And, you know, Mike Novogratz, I knew his sister first, Jacqueline, who started a nonprofit that I used to volunteer for as well called Acumen Fund, which was very cool, like venture capital plus impact. But did do the Galaxy pre-IPO, so I've known them and Galaxy since, what was that, 18, 17. Yeah, none of those people were unfamiliar to me, but to get, I guess as the kids would say, mogged so hard by Vanity Fair was downright embarrassing. It was so bad. I don't know, who do you think came out the worst? I thought Devin took it on the chin pretty hard.
So I'll just give a kind of a brief overview of the article, right? Because I think there are some important points to hit, and I'm going to assume some level of familiarity for anyone watching with this article. Essentially, it was doing 2 things, right? It was tracing kind of the crypto journey of like cryptocurrency itself, starting all the way back with Satoshi Nakamoto, and kind of painting like a little picture of the 2008-2009 kind of financial crisis and some of the founding ethoses. Kind of moved on to Ethereum and how basically opening like developer tools onto the blockchain was this huge kind of sea change. And then it kind of jumped forward and spent quite a lot of time in like 2018 to 2022 talking about these ICOs and DeFi at a very kind of general level and NFTs, all doing that through the lens of these individuals that we have mentioned before: Novogratz and Demirors and Kathy Wood and Danny Ryan and Devin Finzer. Spent a lot of time, and I think this goes to your point, Goldborn, talking about OpenSea as kind of this emissary of NFTs, while ultimately ending with this kind of question: what is crypto now that it's been kind of like mainstreamed? There's a great line at the end of the piece, at the very, very end of the piece, which I have right here, where Malot writes, some of the most committed believers in decentralization are now in closed-door Oval Office meetings. Crypto is held not only by everyday people, but by sovereign wealth funds, family offices, and corporations and private wealth managers. The movement born to make Wall Street irrelevant has become one of its most powerful lobbying forces and its most reliable clients. And so it ends in this kind of question place of like, where are we? But more importantly are these interviews, and now I will kind of wrap up here, with the people I mentioned before, who all are dressed fairly ridiculously. They all chose.
Oh, dude, that the lead photo could not have been.
Yeah, let me just bring that up. We can just have it here while we talk about it.
More hilariously constructed.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about like the kind of genius of the actual composition of the photo itself, but it's important to remember as we look at this that these people all chose their own outfits, and there's a lot of talk in the article about
couture
couture and flying in stylists for the interview. They're in the lobby of a hotel in Manhattan somewhere, and like
that Novogratz bought, which was good for Novogratz.
He bought the hotel.
I think that's what they said in the article. Yeah. It's now his hotel.
Well, they were using rooms, and then the people would go off and they would get stylized. So again, it's just very bizarre. And you said, Colborn, that they got basically mogged by Vanity Fair. I would say that they kind of mogged themselves. Like, I don't even know what this is intended to communicate. I honed in on the leopard print that Melton Demirors all the way on the right is wearing. I honed in on Michael Novogratz in the middle with the red, his velvet lapels. Danny Ryan all the way on the left has made
great
decision to not wear shoes and make that like a part of his image. And then I don't know this guy, the blonde guy, but he's wearing
that's Olaf
on purpose. That's Olaf. Okay.
He was the first employee of Coinbase.
Gotcha.
And then went and started one of the largest crypto funds.
My immediate read on the article was that it felt like a sort of, I mean, as you keep saying, Max, sort of very heavily assisted by the participants, but still it came across feeling like a character assassination attempt against the subculture.
Honestly, I disagree with you a little bit. I think that that's ultimately what it was. But I think this Claire Malot, who wrote it, and I apologize if I mispronounced her name, I think that she's an excellent writer. And I think everything comes across in the subtext. And most of what reads to me as assassination are the quotes from these people themselves.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I think that there is a sense, or I was getting a sense, that these people they were larger than life in a different world and now come across as caricatures, and they can't shed the ego, not the ego, the identities and egos that they had built in that time. And it just seems, years after the NFT boom, 7 years after the ICO boom, that it just seems like a parody of itself. And obviously you look at this photo, and I think that that's the prevailing attitude.
I mean, my feeling was basically it's a situation of giving somebody enough rope to hang themselves.
I mean, it's really well reasoned, and I think it speaks to just a broad identity crisis of who we are, what we're doing, and what we're trying to accomplish now. Because was it ever? We could break it down to crypto art. Was it actually crypto art's goal to make it into Sotheby's and Christie's? Well, we did that. Was it these people's goal to make it into institutions, to have an ETF with BlackRock, to have sovereign nations accumulating Bitcoin? And it speaks to, I think Eric Voorhees actually has a quote in here, which was interesting, that they got him quoted, but he didn't show up.
So I'll add to that if you don't
please.
mind. So there are two non-anonymous interviews. Okay. There are a couple people that were gave quotes anonymously, but Eric Voorhees and Jordan Fish, who is also Kobe online,
right?
That's how I know. They both provided quotes that distance themselves from this crowd. Like I said, I was writing about this, so I have these quotes here. Voorhees said,
"There's two types, right?
Yeah, two types. There's crypto's principled believers, and quote, the guys driving around in Lambos slinging meme coins, who range from outright scammers to the slightly grifty to honest fools who don't know any better. They're vilified because they rightly suck." And then Kobe said later, being a crypto bro was almost cool in 2019. Now it's very much not cool. As I think is evidenced by this.
But keep going with that quote, because it was interesting too. It's like there once was a niche to be a like hyper online male participating in technology, and now it's kind of just become the norm. And it's almost been flattened by the manosphere. I think that's all in there somewhere. And I think it's interesting context because,
Yeah, it says, this is now Malote adding to Kobe's quote. As crypto moved from fringe to mainstream to cultural punchline, its promise of revolution faded. The men who once styled themselves renegades increasingly resembled every other hyper online young guy, gaming, memeing, and trading.
I mean, it's a really interesting and important piece.
I agree. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, and this is the crux of the newsletter this week, is like, how much are we implicated in that, as not these people necessarily, but participants in an ecosystem which, whether through our action or our unconscious inaction, elevated these people to the level of, Hunger Games villain. And that's a question that I'm struggling with, and I don't know if either of you have an opinion on that.
I mean, it's hard because to be first, it requires some daring, some risk taking, and that risk is commensurate. Being first is commensurate with the rewards, but you can't steward people philosophically, right? And when the bad actors follow behind you, and it becomes marketings and pump and dumps, and I mean, it's hard. It's hard, right? Because Devin's hand at OpenSea was forced by the people who were raising money in places like Blur and Magic Eden, and people that had probably less scruples or vision than they initially had. So
I mean, yeah,
but the problem is, of course, is that they raised at $13 billion. They get all these investors behind them. There's too many voices. His wife demands to be in the photo shoot with him, and is the anchor of OpenSea 2.0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me just pull that up, the quote about OpenSea 2.0, because I think that it's OpenSea relaunch.
And then it was the day after they announced that they were delaying the token again.
So this is the quote from the piece, which includes, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name. Her name is Kuo. Yuchi Lyra Kuo is Devin Finzer's wife and business partner at OpenSea 2.0. But what
do you describe her as? Like a Ferrari with a brain?
A Ferrari and a girl.
A Ferrari and a hot girl?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's
right. There's a Ferrari engine inside a hot girl. Which, listen, you want that I have no problem with. You want to describe your wife, that's, do that how you want. I have a problem with how they postured OpenSea in this article. So this said, quote, "We tell normal people it's an expansion," she says, "but it's the world," explaining that the normies, those outside the crypto space, can't yet fathom what technology will do to their lives in the next 5 to 10 years. As the OGs are tired and quitting, she says, we feel more animated than ever. And one thing that I feel like comes through a lot in this article.
Can you zoom out from this picture? I find it really creepy.
Yes. Let me do that for you. Sorry.
Or just take it off.
Yeah, we can. You get the gist.
Yeah.
We can stop sharing.
Definitely Hunger Game vibes.
Yeah. One of the things that you see again and again and again throughout this article are these people who have been trained to sell narratives, continuing to sell narratives in I think a broader world in which there is such deep distrust of tech and crypto and economic institutions and especially narratives that like it all comes across as like cloying and disconnected from reality. When Melton Demirors talks about like crawling on a table at an Ethereum conference, and Michael Novogratz is talking about being out till 4 a.m. at some club in New York, and there's this Olaf is on some yacht somewhere at some partying with
a UAE for token 2049.
Thank you very much. That's exactly what it was. Like it comes across as it's exactly the same behavior that was so rewarded in 2021 by these kind of like rich crypto bros with the Lambos and the watches who are lining up at the Bored Ape Yacht Club parties. And then now I would characterize this ecosystem from top to bottom, right? Crypto all the way down to NFTs as like basically in pain. And to see these people unable to like interface with the pain and still just like it's all bluster and it's all posturing and it's all outfits, and it reads exactly as what it is, which is deeply out of touch with what people are interested in and what people thought they were getting when they came to this ecosystem in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, if you're some retail kid, you took your whatever $250 and bought the Trump coin and were immediately obliterated. I don't think this is going to really feel so good to you.
And I would argue even more people who've been doing this for 5-6 years, right, who are not one of the 25 people who were able to make $1 billion off of this technology, who are mostly struggling at the margins, right? That is just who this audience is now, right? The people reading this article are either people who are outside of the ecosystem and are deeply skeptical in the first place, or they're people who are in the ecosystem, and the vast majority, the 99%, are in a lot of economic pain, probably have given up on the point of this movement, just the same way a lot of artists have given up on the point of crypto art. The thing benefits very, very few, and then these very, very few are still talking about this like revolutionary ideology, even as they're posing in, quote, haute couture flown in from Italy.
I mean, they're trying to attract the next round of exit liquidity.
But the ecosystem, everything's changed. The world has changed. We are not living in 2021 anymore, right? Like, there is not going to be a 2017 or a 2021 again. It doesn't mean that these assets can't become valuable, but the things that people care about, right? A different generation has come of age. The 18-year-olds of 2021 have given way to a new brand of 18-year-olds from a different generation who have different priorities. They find different things attractive. And I don't think insincerity on this level, not to say that they're insincere, but I think that their sincerity is built on insincerity. This is who they are, but they've been built into caricatures because that's what was rewarded deeply for the 4 years that crypto was highly relevant. Sorry, I have a lot of thoughts on this because it's been swirling around my head, so I don't mean to dominate. I'd love to know if you guys have other thoughts on the article.
No, it's just really interesting. It's going to go down as one of those all-timers.
Yeah, I mean, kudos also to Just Vanity Fair and Claire Malotte, who saw a story and told that story.
And got these people all together in the same room. Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. I don't know how you could do that. Somehow Kathy Wood just like kind of just faded into the background. We haven't talked about her once.
There's a great quote about Kathy Wood in the article. It's each of the people who are interviewed have like their own solitary picture and a little blurb under them. And the one about Kathy Wood says she was voted the best trader in the world in 2020 and the worst trader in 2022. And yeah. I think that that is such a rich description of someone. It says so much about the ecosystem, but it says so much about this person too. Like the best in the world to worst in the world. What does she know? Who is she? Yeah, I don't know. It just comes across as very sad. This is still the emissaries. They still believe in themselves as the emissaries, and I don't know if people are going to continue to hold them up as emissaries of this movement, but there's a reason why the most prolific attitude to this article was like despair and comedy, right? I think the general opinion is that like
I mean, it's such cringe.
But again, I
Not
ask,
the article,
Bro,
the
oh my
people.
gosh.
like, how much are we implicated in this as people within the crypto ecosystem who have built here for a long time? Do you feel like this is laughing with us?
Well, I mean, like, I personally don't feel very inspired to build so much more in crypto. It's not worth it, and I think that is like across the board. I've built a lot of stuff in crypto. I've built a lot of like philosophically aligned stuff first, and it seems that the incentive to do so, I like cannot take the personal and emotional toll of doing that again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, and I will just never build a financial first product. But even those, it just feels like a wash.
Took a while.
I mean, look at the things that actually attract attention. Look at anything that has stuck around. Look where the money goes. It has to be reinvented. The idea that it's first money in and then out at a token, that is over. We can't just go around making more tokens. There has to actually be some substance to the creation, and there has to be some longevity. And it feels like maybe it has to grow up, and maybe it's being ported now to institutions, right? Is JP Morgan going to actually go build a killer app on Ethereum?
So I'm gonna use this to transition us away because I think that's a great point. But I feel like there's a similar thing, a similar idea in the public consciousness about AI that I think was borne out with crypto. One of the things that I think characterized crypto were these huge bull cases as crypto, in theory, kind of breached the wider world. And the one that I was always thinking of, I was always found so compelling, was the medical one, right? That your medical records would live on a blockchain ledger. They would be immutable. They would be yours, and you could bring them around wherever. You did not need to use some proprietary medical software. There were all sorts of cases like that. Whether it was like, let's just hold it there. And nothing like that ever got anywhere, right? It was always like these cases like that, like these fringe cases that if they were just adopted, it was so easy to see how it would be like revolutionary.
Yeah.
And yet there was not to say there's never going to be, but in 5 years, there was never really this adoption beyond anything more than like Elon Musk briefly accepting Bitcoin for a Tesla. And I feel like there is a similar attitude about AI, which is that there are these promises, so many promises about all of the ways that it's going to revolutionize medicine, science, art, culture, everything. And yet I think for most people, all they see is job loss and like SaaS as the actual capabilities and like war. And there is there's a feeling of haven't we been here before with metaverse, with crypto, right? Metaverse is the same way. It was prompted as all of these things. I remember when I used to write the newsletter a couple years ago, there's always some article about how VR tech and metaverse tech was helping to like soothe the veterans PTSD, or like it was used to educate people in rural areas about how to like teaching them certain tasks, carpentry, things like that. I remember Metageist, the wonderful VR artist, told me a story once about volunteering at a nursing home and having these elderly people paint pictures and then digitizing them and blowing them up in the metaverse and giving them goggles and letting them see their work as if they were 10 stories tall. And I always thought that these cases they just need adoption. They just need to get there. And so this brings me to Artho, the super rare.
We should say one thing really quick in that Meta, after spending $80 billion, did choose this week to shut down its Horizons World app, effectively ending all of its metaverse plans.
So yeah, I realized a month late because it was in February where they laid off like 15% of all of their metaverse staff and started shutting down apps. But I guess now the dream is truly dead. The whole that news came and went with a whimper. I bet it was fucking released on a Friday, slow news day. But yeah, that's where we are. Again, I want to turn this conversation to the super rare AI curator, the self-described art ho, because I think that this reads to a lot of people like another case of a great potential use case for AI that no one is particularly asking for, and that feels like it's not actually solving a problem. And I don't know how you guys feel. I will say I think you know more about the situation than me. So I'd love if you could fill me in on the situation, how you encountered it, your thoughts. Dane, if you'd like to.
I just want to quickly nitpick one little bit of your introduction. Unless I missed it, I don't believe the ARTO designation is self-described by the AI persona itself. I think it's I think it's super rare characterization, which in a weird way sort of felt all the more jarring because it was paired with I think like a very sort of high-minded academic sort of analytical, something going on about I guess a movie in the Oscars, or I don't know. I'm not very pop culture grounded.
I don't know where that reference came from, but
I don't know either.
Well, it was. I did see the original post online, and it was rather surprising to see that.
I was admittedly watching March Madness for most of the day yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I was not looking at Twitter. I kind of came to the situation late. So they announced this AI curator, or was it an AI art judge, describing it as a quote unquote art ho, which I don't want to get into the racial politics of that because I think that they're dicey depending on who posted it.
And sorry, to be clear, I think there has been clarification since then that the designation does in fact go back to I guess I don't know the name, the person who is in charge of Super Rare's marketing, who is a Black woman, and specifically chose that term to sort of inject a bit of intentional subcultural I don't know, reference or flavor into this project, which I think fundamentally changes things quite a bit. And the way it was presented, of course, it didn't come across that way at all.
Does a AI agent made by and imbued with, like, made by somebody from a certain ethnic background and imbued with characteristics of that community, is the AI then Hispanic, Jewish, Black?
I think that's a heavy question that it feels like is a long way from being resolved. I will say though, like, I don't know. I guess none of us have access to this, AI judge Lola or AI curator or whatever she is. But again, from the bit of conversation Lola had with whoever it was at Super Rare, it vaguely felt like she may have been imbued more with the knowledge than with the I don't know than with the cultural I don't know, resonance of the particular subculture movement.
What is your read on yeah, just super rare. Take away the ethnic component, but Dane, like, what's your read on like super rare releasing a art judge agent? Like,
Um,
I don't know.
I don't know.
What are your
It
thoughts?
seems like a very, Me Too type of thing, which I don't know. In some ways, honestly, feels on brand for super rare for me. They seem to be
Mm,
like constantly, you know, trying to twist and turn in some way that they sort of characterize as new, while fundamentally being them kind of following the lead of someone else, and in some cases someone else who like already failed at that thing. And so I'm regularly kind of surprised and often dismayed at sort of new initiatives that come out, and this is no exception. um but also, I mean, I guess right now this is sort of framed as, I think it might be like a one-off thing, but then, on the other hand, I imagine you don't train an AI curator just to use it once and then never again. So like, clearly this one-off thing is a test or a stepping stone to something else. And the fact that the AI judge is sort of characterized as being all about, I don't know, on-chain interactions and interactive reactivity and blah blah blah, and not so keen on static images. Um,
mhm.
I hope
Quite
that
like blacked out.
this. I hope that.
Can you make that image move?
I hope that this is not heavily in their training, but I mean, fundamentally, what this tells you is that either this specific, whatever it is, a contest or call for submissions, or the AI curator themselves are just somewhat simple-minded in terms of their art preferences, and are probably going to fairly consistently prioritize form over substance.
Mm.
W-
Colburn, what do you think that this all says about? Oh, sorry,
No,
Dane.
no, no. I was just going to say, which again seems to be increasingly the trend. Like you mentioned,
Yeah,
Black Dove wanting everything to blink and blow and whatever else. Um,
dude, the clients love when water moves. What don't you fucking understand?
yeah,
They like the fucking pictures where there's wind in the trees.
yeah.
Just use AI. Just fucking put it in with AI. The clients fucking will go nuts for it. Colborn, what do you think that this says about where Super Rare is as a company in 2026?
I think it just goes back to it's just a broad identity crisis. We have nowhere to go and nothing to do. There's nobody paying attention, and this is going to attract attention. It'll probably attract attention in the wrong way, and I think everybody is just kind of looking for emotion, or at least some distraction from the broader context.
Can a white boy get a little emotion?
I don't know the answer to that, honestly. But again, this is something we did at the museum, what, a year and a half ago, Daim?
Yeah.
It's not particularly new, and it wasn't interesting to people then, and I don't think it's going to be interesting to people now. It's a strange thing to ask for artists to apply and then do the one thing that seemingly is ubiquitously despised by artists. So, my advice would be to try and just do one thing well, which would be to try and sell JPEGs.
It's really hard though to do that.
Apparently it is. Yeah, apparently it is really hard to do
I think it's
that.
well documented at this point that selling JPEGs is fucking near impossible.
I don't know. I keep having to laugh at that. because sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's worth mentioning just briefly that like it's not just like crypto art that is struggling. Like art sales are down across the spectrum from what I understand. Every like second article on ArtNet or Art News is always talking about how like, will the art market rebound? Is this a sign of things rebounding? Like it's people just aren't buying art.
I mean, the economy, there is
Especially
no economy. The economy is upside down.
What? No economy.
But it goes back to the Vanity Fair article because you needed these people and these types of people to make life interesting and to continue to, I saw Meltem at the art events in New York City. She was there, she was participating, or the crypto art events, and these are the type, and she was a huge ether rock person. This was certainly part of the culture. So you do need these people to sustain movements like this, and they're out there. So it's hard to also like poke fun at all of them when we want things to change and we want people to take risks. It feels like we're in a time and place where any public statement towards like the contrary of what is the approved messaging gets immediately, we don't have diversity of opinion, we don't have diversity of technology. Everything is getting run through either the larger existing technology companies or the emergent AI technology companies. And I don't know, it breeds a very bland and cold world.
I don't know, bro. ChatGPT is going to allow erotic conversations. So
I mean, they're stuck too. Everything is like really rocking a hard place.
I mean, it's really hard, right, to sell products that nobody wants.
Sure.
At a certain level, like crypto and these AI companies share something very deeply, which is like people, for reasons right and wrong, good and bad, sensible and fearful, the fact remains. I keep thinking about this, right? The anti-AI crowd is not getting quieter, and they're not getting mollified by new use of technology. Point being, people don't want these things, and yet there are these huge industries built up around them, as if people are going to finally like change their minds. But it seems like, again, like you just said, Colborne, like there's no diversity of thought. Like people just dig into their opinions. If there's one thing we've learned from American politics over the last 8 years, it's that reality bends to the belief that is already in existence. Like the belief does not change to reflect reality. And especially when you're in these echo chambers, like you are just going to be buffeted with validations of your pre-existing opinion that just make it even stickier. So like, yeah, OpenAI is going to have a problem, and Anthropic is going to have a problem, and all these crypto companies are going to have a problem because people have just decided they don't want these things. They're not saying we don't want this because we want this. They're just saying nah. And getting them to then change their minds is very, very difficult. At least in like 2021 with the NFT thing, right? That's the only way that you can really convince someone to change their minds. If you say, change your mind and I'll make you rich, now we're getting somewhere. But in lieu of that,
I mean, does it not feel very post-capital if the goal of capital is just to continue to produce more capital, more efficiency, more capital, we're too extended. We're like too over our skis on this whole thing. We've produced too much product. There's too much consumerism, too much cheap shit. It like all needs to be blown up and rethought.
So I don't want to just completely dominate this conversation, but I've been thinking about this a lot because a couple days ago, in a group chat with some friends, I was sent a picture of a chicken that had been. It was an illustration of a chicken that had been. It was postured as a way of raising meat ethically, right? And it was essentially a living chicken that had been genetically modified, so it had no real head beyond like a kind of autonomous cortex. It had like 4 legs to produce as much meat as possible, and it just kind of sits hanging in this feeding tube until it's like plump and ready to go to the butcher and be diced up. And I think there was some kind of parody or some kind of satirism in the image itself, but it was basically like, now we don't have to torture all of these living animals, which we're basically already doing, um, and we can get as much meat. And it's just people have a terrible. They see this inhumanity, and it seems disgusting to them. But it's no different than keeping 1,000 chickens in a small cage in some fucking Purdue farm in Iowa. And I just kept thinking, like, we have gotten so far from the fucking point of all of this. Like, the point is, let's just raise chickens, and we've so like tried to gamify the raising of chickens. Well, now you don't need to raise chickens. We can just pay a little bit of money for this guy to raise more chickens. But now he's like, well, can I just raise way more chickens for everyone? Now nobody has chickens, but now, like, the only way for me to make money on all these chicken sales is to completely fuck up the chickens themselves and these farming techniques until they're like completely bastardized versions of what agriculture should look like at its like ideal form. And now we're like pumping, laboratory grown chicken like mutants with like
yeah, we're there.
And again, the question is just like, well, what's the fucking point? Like, why do we want this? Why do we want any of this? And I agree with you. I feel like people are so, me included, are unable to voice what we want because we don't know it. We just don't know we don't want this. But we just want a fucking chicken. Can it be that hard for us to just have chickens?
Well, and I mean, I think on that specific part, one of the most obvious sort of not so obvious things to consider is that I'm pretty sure in the West at least, and presumably other areas with like very high living standards and high relative wealth, the amount of meat people eat is like probably completely out of proportion with the percentage of sort of daily and like monthly food intake meat used to be. So part of the answer is, the fact, which I think would be unwelcome to a lot of the people who maybe don't want the headless monster chicken. Part of the answer would be is that, sure, you can just have a chicken that, sort of lived naturally and had a nice life before it became your meal, but then it's going to cost like, 10 times as much.
So
and you're only going to be able to eat it, every couple of weeks.
There's an anecdote I was told once about phones by a friend of mine. And her point was that, like, if you go back 15 years to the late 2000s, you could always tell the rich kids by who had an iPhone, because the scarce resource was new technology and everyone else had a flip phone. And so you could tell wealth by their access to what was scarce, which in that case was new technology. You fast forward to today, and you can't afford not to have an iPhone, right? So there's a new scarcity, and the scarcity is freedom to choose something that is not technologically like new. And so you can tell who's wealthy. The situation was like in a high school by what kids have a flip phone, because those kids, don't need to be, because people in general, they don't need to be fielding calls from their boss all the time. They don't need to be going between two jobs. They don't need to be checking train schedules, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same thing with the chickens, right? Consider, 20 years ago, if you were able to afford all of your meals from out, right? If you were to like abstract the food acquisition process, that was the scarce resource. You didn't need to cook. You didn't need to like know what was in all of your food if you were wealthy. And it seems like we're moving back towards this thing where you will be able to tell wealth by who has a garden, right? Who's growing their own vegetables, who's raising their own meat, who's cooking at home, because the scarce resource is now like health and nutrition that you can see.
Yeah.
And it's just this interesting oscillation, right? As culture changes, wealth always moves to what is becoming, or the interests of wealth always move to what is now a scarcer and scarcer resource.
Yeah, I mean that's always going to be the cycle.
The masses will be eating the mutant chickens, and the wealthy will be, raising a chicken coop and posting TikToks about it. and people will say,
I mean, I think the meat weirdness will go beyond that. Like I think we probably are less than a decade away from laboratory grown meat being the standard, at least in some countries that don't legislate against it.
But again, like, I don't want to make this a diatribe about capitalism necessarily, but like, what are we solving for? Like, are we solving?
I mean, honestly, I have less issue with that.
It's just we're not solving for anything. It's just momentum.
What'll earn money?
Yeah.
What'll earn more money? What'll take money away from your competitors?
Until otherwise, the prerogative is growth at all costs.
Yeah. Which, by the way, to circle back a little bit, to me, like, just so well describes what feels to me like is wrong with super rare. Because other than for, like whoever is making money off of super rare, needing large swaths of money to keep coming in to, maintain their lavish lifestyle, presumably, like, what are super rare's maintenance costs? I bet next to nothing. I'm sure not actually nothing, but I suspect they're probably quite modest considering everything. And if they sort of acknowledged that, the economy is shit and nobody's buying unless for some random ass reason that probably has nothing to do with anything we have done, they decide to buy something, basically, scale back, go into, this skeletal maintenance mode, maybe pay one person to actually start, doing interviews with, artists that, aren't on their, I don't know, top 20 sales list. And, everybody would literally be happier with that, possibly only outside of, super rare headquarters, but the people that, react to most anything they do with like cynicism and criticism online would actually have a reason for once to appreciate something being done by them. They could point out that, things are difficult right now, but, we're scaling back so that, we can guarantee with absolute certainty that, unlike 90% of our competitors, we're not going to fold, within a year or within another 2 years, and we'll actually be here when things pick up back again. And again, they could, start doing whatever little barely meaningful things they are able to do to actually show some attention and show some love to the artists on their platform, most of whom probably only matter from, like a long tail perspective, but, are nonetheless there, have nonetheless contributed with, money from their, however many or few sales towards the, godforsaken amount of money that super rare has made over the years. Things could be so much easier.
Yeah, as still, like, by number of pieces, the largest collector on super rare.
It's crazy.
One of their like staunchest defenders and supporters. I don't even know what it could possibly take for me to be interested in going back. And even just like looking at work.
When was the moment? I mean, can you trace like the moment when you stopped feeling that interest?
Was there like an event? It was a long time ago. I mean, it wasn't super rare's fault.
Was it my fault?
It was just, it wasn't your fault. It was just, we never escaped our own echo chamber. And then and then it got diverted to PFP. Again, I really think it was Foundation's fault. I think it was Kayvon, who brought like some really immoral and reprehensible marketing practices to the space. And it was Nifty Gateway with open editions, which ruins any semblance of digital scarcity.
Yeah.
And, people they just don't forget that first impression. And then,
Yeah.
and then there was a lot of, excitement that turned to disappointment and regret when we had a very sustainable, growing, philosophically diverse community having conversations about where this was going and what this was doing. And there were different factions, and it was okay to disagree. But there were, it was somewhat tribal. And then, we'll call it the post Beeple moment. It was suddenly every artist for themselves, right? And the DMs got messy, and it was just more about direct selling and direct sales. And people who were doing that type of stuff were rewarded. And there's there's no coming back from that. There's no coming back from a just kind of like dirty marketing blitzes.
Yeah, I think that's always been a big frustration of mine with the space, that you could, if you were close enough and deep enough and involved enough, you could probably fairly easily point out to, maybe not in like an objective list type of sense, but at least in your own subjective sense, you could easily point to like some of the best in the space, whether in terms of innovation or artistry or whatever else. And yet in most cases, like, none of that stuff was ever what dominated the mind share of even our sort of subculture, never mind the zeitgeist beyond the crypto and crypto art scenes.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I think if there's one thing we know about like art preferences in general, like people do not really like contemporary art in general, right? People still, there's a reason why the names that people know are like Dali and Van Gogh and Monet. It's like people like paintings, right? This goes back to what I was saying about like AI and crypto. It's like people, yes, a certain amount of it is like people don't know what they want until they're told that they want it. But another level, it's like people the masses continue to tell us what they want, right? And one of the things they want is like to look at a nice painting, because painting is beautiful and painting is a difficult art and they can't do it themselves. And there's a reason we like keep going back to it. And so much of like the art in this space is, I remember talking to Coldy once on an interview, and he was talking to me. This is before my time, but it was like I believe the summer of 2019, 2020, when 3D object art became big. He called it 3D bouncing balls, and it was just like people were just going all over with like 3D models, and they were selling. And I kept thinking like, well, the problem with like a 3D image is that like you don't necessarily know. I mean, it's with all digital images. You don't necessarily know the craft that goes into it. People want to see like they want work. You look at a piece of furniture, you can see that it was made by somebody by hand, right? You can see the craft that went into it by the success of the thing. I think it's harder to tell with digital art. I feel like a lot of the digital art that was turned into like investment assets, especially like the art block stuff. It's like there's just no way of looking at most of these art blocks pieces as an example, and understanding whether like why one is better than the other, what makes one artist better than the other, like what makes one piece more difficult than another, where the craft is. I think that's a big problem.
It's all very process opaque.
Yeah, same thing with, I think a lot of abstract art has this problem too. A lot of like conceptual art has this problem. People can't connect with it because they can't see. They can't see where the craft is. And if you have to read an artist statement, you're already fucked.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, and there is like definitely a tension between, ideas of crypto art, is going to sort of democratize creation and collection of art, and the very heavily sort of non-popular or non-popular appealing art focus that the movement strongly trends toward.
I'm working on a big unified theory that it's just all totally fake and manipulated. Pretty much that 99.9% of online opinion that you see that gets promoted is bot driven, and it's people operating with ulterior motives to drive capital to certain places. And it's all just kind of an extension of like spam marketing and the growth of the spam marketing industry. And it's effectively meant to be just a continued tax on retail or just on people. And I think that's what happened to NFTs, is that it entered, there was authentic community growth, and then it became commercial, and then immediately that commercial network of malicious actors came, blew it up, extracted it, and dumped it. And I think that is happening like again and again and again and again and again on the internet through actors that just control what you see or what is popular or how interest is moved.
So what you're saying is we need wide KYC practices.
I think we need to begin to delineate. Yeah. I mean, is it something like WorldCoin that authenticates that you're a human, that it's a human posting it, and that all of these people, if you could guarantee me a social network that is all humans and it's actually all human replies, I would probably be interested in something like that.
I think it'd be very fucking quiet.
Yeah, it would probably be really, really quiet. I don't think people have time. I don't think people have money. I don't think,
people
but
have energy.
I don't think they have the energy to care about these really fringe things.
So there's there's so many Discord servers with 150, 200, 1,000 members that just sit quiet because nobody actually wants to participate in anything. People want to just watch.
Yeah.
It's hard, and most people don't have very much to say at any given time, and that's awesome, fantastic. You shouldn't just talk if you have nothing to say.
Computers. Yeah, when this war with Iran started, the number of spam calls that I get on a daily basis dropped from like 50 to 1 or 2. Which was really weird to me. I don't know why. I don't know why. Same with spam email, same with spam text messages. I used to get like 100, 200 across those every single day.
That's what we should pick up next week.
What is that?
Gotta pilot the drones, I guess.
What? Yeah, exactly.
Like calls now.
Like there's compute going to other places than trying to.
It's bizarre.
Bog me down.
It's such a brave new world. Such creatures in it. It's been here for an hour. We should get out of here. We didn't get to talk about News Hermes' novel that I have thoughts on.
Oh yeah, that was cool. We should have.
Which was cool. TLDR is really good. Not really, really great, like unbelievable in context. Otherwise, it's like, but really cool. Coborn, thank you very much. Daim, thank you very much. Everyone in the chat, thank you for being here. Ferociously amused. We appreciate your lighthearted comments. And
Dim Cat?
We don't know how you found us, but we're glad you're here.
I think it's hilarious that people still say GM. People say GM like across all sorts of things. That escapes the very narrow confines of crypto art.
And how. We'll be back next week, Thursday, 12 p.m. EST. Don't miss it. And Coborn, Dane, and I will.